I am the music god. This is the Noize Report. You know what we do here? We interview people, we laugh, we have fun, we talk about all kinds of random, cool, interesting stuff. Mostly music, but we include movies, pop culture, and pretty much anything else that someone is willing to be a victim of my random, insane questions. With that said, today I am very honored to have these two gentlemen. They have an amazing project, and I'm probably going to pronounce this incorrectly, but we're going to go with Migliori Amici and Company. Is that correct?
Very good.
Almost. make all the I's. Make all the I's into long E's. So Migliori Amici, and then that's
Okay.
And there that was good though. What you did was good. Migliori Company. Yep.
People will find it easier to say Migliori. The Americans will anyway.
Yeah, I am horrible at pronouncing stuff because, for somebody who's lived all over the world and traveled all over the world, I screw up. And it's funny because I'm born and raised in Michigan. So I can perfectly say things like Ypsilanti, Charlevoix, Grosse Isle, Dowagiac, but I can't pronounce basic New York stuff or English stuff. And it's like, I think it's a Michigan thing, but anyways, this is Ray and Michael. They are the brains behind this. So they're going to start by introducing themselves, giving a little bit of history on themselves, and kind of telling us a little bit about this project to start.
Anyway, okay, I'm Ray DeTone, guitarist, producer, composer. I was born in New York when I was 3. Let's see, how far back do you want me to go? And then I went to kindergarten in the Bronx, and then in the first grade, I had Anyway, the background is whatever. Been playing guitar since I was 8. Been writing since I was 14. That's probably not the history we want, and then from there, became a professional.
Nice.
And make a living doing it now. Woohoo!
Hey, you're already beating the odds on that.
Yeah. So during COVID, it all paid off because actually I wound up working more as a session guitarist, producer, and composer while I was locked at home. And I got to remember to go this way, not that. This. Anyway, your turn.
I'm Michael Sciotti, working with Ray on this project. I started playing when I was 6 years old. Been playing for 100 years now, and I played with various bands over the years. Duncan from the Fire, Jefferson Starship, Marty Ballin, lots of Million Please, John McCoy. It goes on and on. And so now we've just been started this project with a lot of great talent, and we're lucky after all these years of playing to have so many friends that are great talents. So between me and Ray starting a thing and grabbing all our friends and doing it, that's how it came to fruition, I guess.
Yeah. So really quick, let me just read this. As far as the other people that were on this thing, we have where did I go? I just had it in front of me. Mike Clark, Nikki Marak, Adam Holzman, Alex Salzman, David J. Keys, David Turpia, Ralph Merigliano.
Yep.
That one good. It's Mark Clark, by the way.
Yeah, it's Mark Clark and Nick Morak. Yeah, you're close on all of them.
Oh, yeah. Did I mix that up? Mark Clark, yeah. And Nikki Marak. Some of the bands, if you don't know these names, they have performed with Billy Squier, Coliseum, Elton John, David Bowie, Ace Frehley, Steve Wilson, Ross the Boss, just a who's list of major superstars across multiple genres.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of guys
um,
that, like Michael and myself that are behind the scenes guys, a lot of
mhm,
people may or may not have heard of them. The fans and well, musicians know these guys,
right.
but the fans, depending on how deep fans dig into, who plays what. Like Michael is like one of those expert guys. Well, who played on that Boss Gags record? Oh, that was blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I I love that stuff because that's really, there's all the, I guess, the pop culture references. Crossroads, Ralph Macchio's role was, Boz Scaggs, and I love like little things like that. Where, like in the movie Rockstar, Mark's vocals were done by three different vocalists, depending on the phase he's in. It started with uh, Jeff Scott Soto, and then it went to Matejevic, and then at the end, it was dude from the Verve Pipe.
Yep.
So,
Wow. See, I thought Mark actually sang in that movie.
no,
But
no,
That's how much I know.
what's really funny? I saw the Verve Pipe about 2 months ago. They were opening with Five for Fighting. And,
yeah,
and he does the song from
yeah,
the movie. And he goes and he tells the story and he goes, "Oh, it's so funny. People always come up to me and go, oh, I love when you do that Mark Wahlberg song."
yeah, he,
And he goes, "Well, that was actually me, but
yeah. He we see him quite a bit because he's from Michigan, and he tells that story a lot, and it's very true. And it's funny that people know stuff but they don't know,
correct."
and I guess it's a cool way, a kind of an icebreaker maybe, but at the same time, I imagine it's probably annoying after a certain number of times of not getting the credit that you rightfully deserve.
Much. I do a lot of stuff with Nicky Morak. He's a big session guy, and he goes, and I go, "Man, isn't it dragged how many times we do stuff and we don't even get credit?" He goes, "Oh, there's sometimes we go in there and he go and we do so much." He goes, "Basically, all they bring to us sometimes is the tempo."
Yeah,
Get the credit for everything, and it's kind of like, nah. You get paid, so it's kind of like, and you do it over the years so many times that happens so much, but it is still annoying. It's like you do so much stuff, people are credited by stuff, and I'm like, yeah, but I was the guy who played on that, but they don't even know. They'll never know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I've done enough sessions like in midnight, replacing guitar tracks on, and the guitar player comes in the next day and it'd be like, "Wow, man, that sounds great." Yeah, because that's not you.
yeah.
exactly.
I mean, even I find it funny that even sometimes, like, being in a famous band doesn't guarantee that people will know who you are.
Oh,
Like
Yeah,
Bruce
they also-
Springsteen Bruce Springsteen in the E Street Band. Other than maybe Stevie Van Zandt and Clarence Clemens, I don't think the majority of Americans could name another member of the E Street Band.
Yeah.
Well, well, not even that. It doesn't even guarantee you that that's them playing on the record.
Well, right.
Yeah. It's like how many people go, "Man, when Christopher Cross came out, I never realized what a great guitar player he was." Yeah, but that would be Larry Carlton playing all the solos on it. But
Yeah.
who's Larry? Steely Dan. No problem. Nobody.
Yeah. We have had many long discussions over spirited drinks about the mass number of studio players that have played unknown on Kiss records. And there's. Go ahead.
Growing up in the Bronx, and being actually the first studio I went into was Eddie Solin's studio in the Bronx, and he was good friends with Ace Frehley. So I was a teenager, and I knew that Anton had played drums on all the Kiss records going back there.
Mm-hmm.
So so I knew about that at a very young age, about all that behind the scenes stuff that was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still debate. I'm not going to be the expert on it, but I never heard Joe Perry play again like that. were playing on Walk This Way.
Yeah.
That's, supposedly that was Steve Hunter, and I don't know.
Yeah. I know.
So, there's rumors about Slash on the first Guns N' Roses record. I don't know.
He's a pretty good guitar player, though.
Yeah, but
He's a pretty good guitar player.
Yeah,
but
parts that
I agree with that, but they were deep into addiction at that point, so I wouldn't be shocked at all by them having to redo stuff for, much like the Sex Pistols. Steve Jones ended up having to redo almost everything after they recorded it during the day because Sid couldn't play bass, barely. And, it was like Steve would spend most of the night just fixing everything that Johnny and Sid had screwed up. So I know Bob Kulick had a resume of doing a lot of stuff that he never truly got credit for a lot of those bands that.
Yeah, Bob was nice.
Yeah. Oh, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's called it's called the music business, and
exactly.
When I was, I guess in I remember the bass player from Happy the Man, who's a good friend of ours, Rick Kennel, and I remember saying, it's a business of selling plastic, and I was just like, oh, fuck you, man. No, it's not. It's about the music. And he always used to say it's a business of selling plastic. And a lot of musicians go through life and never really understand that it's a business.
Yeah.
And you got to learn about the business that you're in if you want to make a living in that business.
Yeah.
I'm still, I've done this summer. I have 3 songs I composed for a film that Randy Edelman is scoring. Google him, if, to the audience, or Bing him, or whatever you guys do. But as long as I've been writing and placing music, which probably started in 1989 with Fame, I'm still learning about publishing and trying to, and not being a big name writer. Just, half my time is spent collecting the money that, the major administrator I'm signed to, which I won't mention to disparage them, hasn't paid me in 3 years.
Yeah.
Music business. So you got to chase your own money. You've got to, and unfortunately, when you're young and starry-eyed and you want to be, what we all got involved in, we wanted to be, I guess rock stars or whatever.
Right.
But, you think it's all about, well, why not me? I used to hate hearing the Beatles on the radio because those guys broke up years ago. Why are they playing this Beatles shit on the radio, man? Why aren't they playing my stuff? Maybe.
And Ray's pretty good about getting money for his stuff. I would say once a month, I always give him a call and I go, hey, one of my questions is always, hey Ray, I did this thing. Well, how come I'm not getting money? How'd you get your money for that? It's like, and 50 years of playing, I still am like, how do we get my money for that? And it's like, oh, we only get 0.0001% every time that's played now. So it's like, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah. And if you go to your lawyer and say, hey, and he goes, by the time I collect that money for you, you're gonna owe me.
Yeah.
So that's like, and the big corporations take advantage. They really take advantage of. I mean, not just in the writing end of it, but in all kinds. It's still big corporation. Still a big music business, despite the fact that everybody, is being, I don't know, trained that it's a do-it-yourself business, and there is a certain amount, if the right personality with the right knowledge could do on their own, but it's still what's the old saying? It takes a village.
Yeah.
It still takes a village.
My problem. I feel like at my age, I'm one step behind all the time. When you were younger, you want to get in a band, and you finally get in a band, then you got to make a CD. You finally make a CD, and you do this, and now it's like, oh, okay, well, we finally got signed. Okay, now make some videos, and now it's like, how come we're not doing it? Oh, you have to have TikTok. I don't know how to do TikTok. Like, I need to be like 20 years younger to be in what's happening now. I can't keep up with like what's the right thing to do and what's the newest thing. Everything's like, get on MySpace. No, MySpace is over. Get on Facebook. Facebook is over. No, get on TikTok. Instagram. What the hell? I need to be like 8 years old to figure out how to make $1 million.
I mean, it's a hard lesson to learn. Like, look, when I was 20 years old, we started a band called Psychotic Therapy. From a very early age, 7 years old, I wanted to be a rock star. What's your plan B? There was no plan B. I was going to be a rock star. And when we started Psychotic Therapy, we recorded the record. We sent it out. Atlantic Records called us. Jason Flom personally called us and said, hey, we want to fast track you guys, but you don't have touring experience. We're going to put you on the road. You're going to go through the South, and you're going to open for this new band, or this rising band called Pantera and I Hate God. Awesome. Put 5 guys in a 15 or in a,
right,
in a van,
right,
pulling the trailer. Hey, we're living the life. And after about a week of sleeping in Walmart parking lots, sharing a Happy Meal because we were making $10 a night, we hit Minden, Louisiana, pulled over on the side of the road, and we were just like, you know what? This is bullshit. Why are we living in a van and they have a tour bus, and this sucks? And we were like, look, we're either going to go home or we're going to go to jail, because we got to the point we hated each other, man. You couldn't sleep right, you couldn't shower right, you were eating right, and you got to pay your dues. And then we were just like, no,
it's hard.
Yeah, like, screw this. We went home and we called Jason up and like, look, do what you want with the record, but
yeah, when you do stuff like that, it's all like the little things start to irritate you. Like when your bandmates, it's like rock and roll, it's gonna be great. And a couple of weeks afterwards, I told you not to put your fucking card on. Like, get this stuff.
Yeah, like we hadn't signed the contract yet, and they were like, we want you to tour first. And it was, I think Jason knew exactly like what was going on, because I'm glad we didn't sign that contract before we went out, because we'd have been financially just ruined by that. And I look back at it now and laugh, but at the time it wasn't funny. Like, it was, middle of July, 95 degrees, 5 guys in this passenger van scrunched together with, guitars and drums and shit shoved in the back. And it was miserable. And I was like, no.
It was better to be actually signed to a small label and be the big fish, as on the big label and being the small fish, because then you never get up there, So it's tough. But who knows that when you're younger, you're just happy to do anything, and you're just excited, and you don't really have experience, so you think everything is great.
Yeah, like, we went into it, kind of, we were opening for really big bands at Harpo's and all that. We had played with King Diamond, Borknagor, Bolt Thrower, Malevolent Creation. So we had played with all the big bands. Right. So we thought, we're ready, man. We're ready to go.
Right.
But I'm telling you, playing a local show and going on the road are just 2 complete different beasts. And it's a hard lesson to learn, but I'm glad I learned it and transitioned to something else. And now I get to do cool stuff like this, So, let's talk about the record.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Good idea. No, I was going to say my first tour was with Drive, She Said, with Mark Mangold. So it was kind of.
Oh, nice.
It wasn't nice, but it was much nicer than what you just described.
Right. Well, I mean, Drive, She Said, is a bit more established than, we were like, we were a 5-piece from Jackson, Michigan that no one had ever heard of.
Well, Mark had it was established, but it was the first record,
Okay.
And and I remember at Thanksgiving, we were signed. I shouldn't say. I mean, I was a hired guy. But Drive, She Said, was signed to CBS Records at Thanksgiving. Big show in New York City, Cat Club. It was packed. And they were like, okay, you are our main thing. 1989. You
Mhm.
are our band, you know, but we're just going to get through Christmas with all our big acts, and then you are the band, you know, January. And I remember, you know, when we finally did tour later that summer, I remember it was just like, yeah, what happened? January 6th, you know, Mark reached out to CBS and it was just like, hey guys, so it's January, it's 1990, we're going to rock, right? Drive who?
Right.
Drive what? Who's that?
Yeah.
And whatever happened, I think, you know, Mark wound up acquiring the rights to the record, and then, you know, he did a whatever what it was, I don't know if it was Music for Nations or European, and then we did wind up touring the first record, and that was it was okay, but yeah, like I said, it was not the horror story that you're talking about. It was like,
Right.
you know, Mark already had a name, so there was, you know, there were people coming to see us, and it was, we actually headlined, which was, you know,
Yeah.
depending on the size of the venue, you know, was, you know, it was hit or miss. But if it was a small enough venue, it was packed. When we played the Astoria, it was it was a good turnout. But, you know, but it's tough. It's a tough thing, and,
Yeah.
and it's a business for the young, because you
Yeah.
really gotta want it.
Yeah.
And now the American Idol culture is like changed. Nobody really pays their dues. Although I shouldn't say that. I'm thinking more about the pop world, you know.
Yeah.
You know, but in the rock world, I don't even know. I mean, nobody's paying me
Well,
much
how
in the rock world anymore. It's like
Yeah.
pop, hip hop, film scores, you know,
Right.
soundtrack music. You know, I still produce a couple of rock acts and stuff like that, but um, you know, most rock things are self-contained anyway. So, as you know,
Yeah.
unless you're coming in at midnight to replace somebody's stuff, you
Right.
know, it's a whole different world now as we've gotten older.
Yeah.
Yeah. I imagine it, like, it's changed so dramatically because it used to be, you know, studios, you had to go into the studio to record. And now technology has made it where, you know, with Pro Tools and Fruity Loops and the 75 million other programs that are out there,
Yep.
you know, you have people, Billie Eilish, for example, who are winning Grammys by literally recording records in their bedroom. And it's just crazy. Like,
Yeah,
I,
that's very true to a certain extent, but you know, we're talking about not the norm. You know, I mean, that's one
yeah,
in a billion that happened. But I
right.
mean, so many people
Yeah.
who have home studios. The only thing is, and it is easier for sure. You don't have to go into the major studios anymore. But still, I get tracks from people that I go, dude, what is that? That
Yeah,
doesn't work. I mean, you can't just buy Pro Tools and
yeah,
live DV
Yeah.
think that you know what you're doing. I mean, you know, I get tracks and I go, you can't record them like that because I can't use them. You know what
yeah,
I mean? People, there's a lot of people who are actually really, I got to give them credit. They're really good at it, and you can do a lot, like you said, in your bedroom. It's amazing now.
right.
But there's people that are still like, oh Jesus Christ, man, you got to
Yeah,
actually learn before you do something.
But
You know?
yeah, keep in mind that with Billie Eilish, Jimmy Iovine basically took that and
right,
ran with it once, you know. So
right.
uh, it
Yeah,
got what it needed.
yeah,
Right.
You know,
for one of for every one you know person that's that major, there's 100,000
Yeah.
don't even have
yeah.
a shot or what the hell they're doing. You know what I mean?
And I totally get it. Like, I get stuff all the time. You know, we produce their own stuff, and I hear it, and I'm just like, okay,
Yeah, sounds like it.
yeah, don't do that again.
Yeah.
You know, get a producer, get an engineer, somebody that, you know, like, um, and I don't want to be mean about it, but at the same time, you
No one
can tell that
doing
no one has been honest with these guys
it. Yeah,
before, and
Yeah. Well, I'm actually working with a guy now who, you know, who I basically said, look, well, I don't know anything about engineering. You're using words like hertz and sample. And I'm just like, look, if you're sending me tracks, you are now an engineer. So if you're an engineer, then learn something
yeah,
about, you know, it's the same thing I was saying before. You want to be in the music business? Learn a little bit about the business. Everybody with a laptop and GarageBand is not a producer. but they think they are.
Yeah. I had
You know.
I had a guy locally who he wanted me to play bass on a track, and I'm like, okay, first off, I haven't played bass in like 8 years. Oh, I just need a simple bass line. Okay. He sends me the track, and it's just like, and then he sends me the vocal track, and I'm like, okay, listen, what program are you using? And he's like, Fruity Loops. And I was like, okay, there's a thing in there. It's called Beat Matcher. And he goes, what's that? That ensures that the beat that you're trying to rap over are actually the same, because you're rapping at a beats per minute that is completely different than what the actual track is. You're not on cue. And he goes, well, you're not a hip hop producer. No, but I'm a musician and I know what beats per minute is. And I can tell you're at 87 and your sample is at 128. You're not even close to, you're rapping way slower than what the sample is. Okay. Missing it a little bit is one thing, but missing it by like 40 beats a minute, you're not even close, bro. Like, you're not even in the driveway of the house that it's being recorded in. So,
Or it could be the newest fad.
I don't know, bro. I just know I'm like, yeah, I can't do anything with this, you know. And I'm like, look, take it to this guy. He went to see that guy, and I guess they fixed it, but I was just like, I can't do anything with that. Like, look, I know enough.
I've worked with a lot of teenage artists and young artists, and there's definitely, I mean, I don't know, your situation sounds bizarre, but there's definitely a fine line to walk with, trying to teach them the right way to do it, but also trying to allow them, might be the new greatest thing, might be like, a track at 128, rapping at 80, I mean, I love that. That's cool.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I know enough to do what I do, but I'm not a sound engineer. I'm not a producer. So that's why I told him, I was like, look, go see this guy, because he's an actual producer, and he has a small studio and he knows this stuff. So he can, whatever you're trying to achieve, he will help you achieve it. I'm just, like, I'm the closet engineer dude who, that was my own thing. The record is called Best of Friends. Talk about the record a little bit, kind of what kind of is behind it, because this is an amazing record. This is not prog for the casual fan. Like, this is a really deep record with a lot of elements working here, and I don't think the real prog fans are going to hear this record and be like, holy shit, this is amazing. But people who don't listen to prog are probably going to miss the majority of what's going on, because you kind of have to have an understanding for this record. Like, this is a musician's record, I guess is what I want to say, in the sense that it's really well put together and it's deep, and the elements really work on so many levels.
Very cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, yes. Thank you. First, let me say thank you. But Michael and I are both, very steeped in pop music and melody,
right,
and so on. So it's definitely accessible, like in a more song format, rather than just going off and trying to impress people with musicianship. So it's we've both came from a very like song structure background, so there is a lot of continuity in the music to that. But of course, we wanted to also do what we're not allowed to do as session players. I shouldn't say not allowed. Like, you play what's right for the artist, for the song, and that's how you make a living. So we wanted to do something. Once we got rolling with it, we wanted it to be something that, hey, what will we do? I mean, just let's just have fun with it, not worry about. We knew it would be a niche record, from the start, but why not? You know, we're all sitting at home. COVID has got us, you know, locked down, and so let's do something for us.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
it's no pressure, and it's our own thing. You know, we weren't on a time limit, and it was just kind of like, you know, we played together for 100 years, and we said
Hey,
let's
I'm not
get
that.
well, you know, like 70.
I am.
But and then every tune we did, we said like, oh, you know, it'd be great on this song. You know, it'd be perfect for this song. You know, and it'd always be one of our best of friends. And you know, and it was like it just worked out perfect. You know, for us. And I think you can hear it in the music. You know, the feel of it. You know, it's not just like it's not a prog record where it's just like all
Right.
playing, but there's like some feel to it. You know, there's like song structure, even if there's no lyrics. You know what I mean? It's got tells its own story.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I know this is probably way off, but this is my own weird brain working. I kept thinking, listening to this record, if Jim Steinman recorded a Jethro Tull record, that's kind of like what I was getting, because it's got the theatrical side to it. It's got that sort of Steinman vibe to it, but it's also got the flutes and the keyboards and the stylings of like a Jethro Tull or a Coliseum. That's that big sort of proggy bombastic sound. And I just kept thinking to myself, they really just, you know, like I don't think like your casual everyday pop fan would get some of the references that maybe went into this. But it is very accessible in the sense that it's very melodic, and I love Arctic.
Arctic Drift.
Yeah, that's an amazing song. Obviously, Images at the end, the Jason Becker composition. Jason is such a massive hero to me because, you know, phenomenal player, and to survive that horrific disease for 30 plus years is this, it's undescribable. Like, you know, most people 6 months to a year is what they survive ALS, and here's Jason, what, 32, almost 33 years later, you know, still hanging in there, man. And
Incredible.
you know, I've said, like, look, the cure to ALS, it's in Jason's DNA somewhere. You know, like maybe they haven't found it, but it's in there somewhere, because there's just no other logical reason that Jason's been alive for 30 years with a disease that kills you quickly. You know, so maybe it's beyond our understanding, but I'm glad. And you know, that he's still composing, which is, I think, the craziest thing.
Yeah.
And I love Jason. Like it's such an inspirational story, but the work he did with Cacophony, and then the David Lee Roth stuff that he recorded, and you know, the kid is just he'd have been such a massive superstar, bar that. So
I know, that's incredible. Yeah, no, that's great tune too.
Yeah. I think it's Shattered Glass is the one I was listening to right before this, and it's very theatrical. It has a kind of a, I don't want to say Broadway, but it has that sort of Steinman-ish feel. If I remember correctly, it's that kind of a lot of.
That's actually an older song that we were in a band, Shattered Glass, in the '80s, and Ralph, the keyboard player, was on this record too. He
Okay.
that band as well, and that's a song that was like our own. It was more of a pop band, and then that was an instrumental song that we had, and then we always loved that song. We said, someday we should revise it and do it. So we ended up.
Yeah. Like it almost kind of reminded me. It could be used for like a Disney score of some kind. And maybe that's not. Maybe I'm not thinking of the right song, but
Look up that
right. Give me that Disney money. Talk about. There was a thing Dave sent me that was attached to this. The Children of the World live streamed concert. Has that already happened, or is that
Yep.
in the future? Or
Yeah, that happened already.
okay, talk about that a little bit because I love a good charity type of thing. You know, that helps people.
Well, that's I've been working with some people. I mean, the guy who's I guess the what would you call it? The head, the face of it, Soho Johnny. Um, and I've been connected with him and his record label and production, and for probably I don't know 2 or 3 years now. Um, and so he's just a very what is it, philanthropist? Is that the right word? I mean, he's
Yep.
very much being charity events. So that was done under his Let Me Help, and of course with a whole group of other people involved. And I was involved with the 9/11 concert that he did in, I guess, what's it, 2021. So that came up through someone that my co-publisher, who I've done a lot of work with, John Velasco for 15, 16 years now. And so he said, "Hey, we're doing this, concert global for the children. Do you want to be involved?" And of course, I'm involved with a lot of things for that label and whatnot. I've mixed a bunch of their artists. I've guitared for many of their artists, and so it was, yeah, sure. But I've got this new project, and they invited me on the Soho at Night TV show. To do an interview, and I was like, well, can we preview the Migliori Amici and Company new video, even though it's called Sick Shit. Is that okay? And they're like, yeah, we love it. It's great. They loved it. They loved the record, and so they included us, with that whole, in that whole 6-hour concert, which was all from all around the world. So it was nice. So we used it to, world premiere that video, which everybody should go and check out. Sick Shit video, but Michael directed, and we did a great job. And we've got a lot of footage from Japan in that, which is really cool, and cartoon images of ourselves and all kind of groovy stuff.
Yeah, we had a little in there with Ray's girlfriend being from Japan, so we got some footage that she took. So it was really our own footage that we got to use, and it was original. So it was really cool. And one of her friends is a professional dancer. She's a professional dancer, but a lot of her friends, she taped a lot of her friend, the girl that's dancing in there. So it's really it was very cool. We had a lot of great footage, from her.
Yeah, she was actually the main dancer. Yoko was actually the first, and I don't know if it's Asian or Japanese, to be in Cirque du Soleil.
Oh, nice.
So she's a contemporary dancer, and it's very cool. It just kind of fit the whole craziness of the song.
Awesome. She just fit right in it perfectly.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next, I guess, transition is talk about. I'm talking to Ray. Talk about your work. You've done work with Japanese artists, and I'm a massive fan of Japanese music, of all different genres, but mainly the first two bands that really introduced me to Japanese music were X Japan and Loudness. And Yoshiki. I'm such a fan of Yoshiki because the guy is just such a phenomenal drummer, but as a pianist, as a composer, having survived his neck injury and made the comeback with it. And then, of course, Akira, doing Loudness, created killer guitars. own line of guitars and all of that. And I found that Japanese music is, they do things that Americans would never even attempt. You have metalcore bands mixing with EDM, and you have the J-pop mixing with the rock, and there's all of these sounds that they create, and your brain says that shouldn't work, and then you hear it, and you're like, "Damn, that's just good." Like it's it's like that shouldn't work, but it does, and
Well,
you kind of talk
it's
about
different. Yeah. Well, it's not. I mean, I go back. My first solo record was signed by Kuni Takeuchi, who had a label
Oh, nice.
called F. And Kuni lived in California for a while, but I never met him actually till I went to Japan. But anyway, but I also do, like, I've worked with about 100 different Chinese artists,
Right.
Asian. And it depends on the point of view. Like your point of view is like, wow, this is different, this is cool. A lot of people don't see it that way, especially in the big corporate music business in America. They expect a certain thing, but it's almost not cool. It's just their interpretation of how they want to do it, which is it's just a different outlook. And so it's different than what you're used to hearing from, say, an American band or a British band.
Right.
It's a different approach. When I worked with the Chinese, when I do work with them, it's it's your antenna are up, your spidey senses are tingling, because it's not like the music we know, which is usually, your basic pop songs are in, 4 bars, and then there's a change, or 8 bars, or 16 bars, or something. It might be 13 bars. It would be a verse, let's say, because of the language, for instance, and how you would. So it's a lot of things are done differently. I've always been from the background of mixing stuff. Like I can do authentic country playing. I can do authentic, even my metal playing isn't authentic, although a lot of people think of me as a metal player, or from back in the day of the I always like to put things together and explore that. So when I hear that, I just think, yeah, that's super cool. When I first heard Billie Eilish, I was just like, wow, this is the anti-pop girl mixed with 9-inch nails.
Okay.
That's so I personally, I love that, and I've always tried to incorporate that into my own my own musical endeavors. Again, Migliori Amici and Company allowed us to do that. Whereas when you're working, you kind of stick to the, whatever's needed, and what the vision of the artist or the producer is. But that whole exploration of combining things is it's what I'm working. Another project I have in Japan right now called Convergence is what I'm also working on now, which is basically shamisen. I mean, you talk about Japanese music, but you're talking about Japanese metal. I don't know anything about Japanese metal, except Marty Friedman lives over there, and he's now like a well-known comedian. He's got his own TV show, but other than that, I don't know Japanese metal. I'm working with traditional shamisen players and taiko drummers, and doing a classical form, and I'm putting that together with dance music, with EDM beats and hip hop, and I'm producing this whole thing. And to me, that's fascinating. How do you make the electric guitar work with shamisen? How do you taiko drum with hip hop beats? So I mean, I love that whole. Let's make something new. I'm tired. Like with this record with Migliori Amici and Company, I always want to put the and Company there, because if you just Google Migliori Amici, you get too much stuff. If you put the and Company in there, you get us.
Right.
But and now I forgot exactly what I was going to say. So.
No, you're right, and even beyond the metal thing in Japan, you have artists like Gen Dog, who is a hip hop artist that is so amazing, and you have artists on every level, even beyond that. That if you explore the culture in that, it's so fascinating because again, they do things that Americans simply either refuse to do or they just very few artists really kind of venture outside of their box to explore the soundscapes like that. And I think it's amazing when artists do. I love hearing stuff that's different. I love hearing one of my favorite thing is mashups. And I love mashups because just the pure adventureness of combining things that your brain logically don't think should be combined. Rat with Marvin Gaye or Meatloaf with the White Stripes or, an EDM song with Slayer or something like that. And then they make it work. And you're like, okay, Round and Round and I Heard It Through the Grapevine shouldn't work on any level. But they're making it work. And it's just awesome that people are thinking outside of the box. Queen being one of my favorite bands, that's the biggest thing I loved about Queen, is Queen was always just, they could never be locked into a box per se. It was rock, it was metal, it was Broadway, it was opera, it was whatever Freddie wanted to do, basically, or whatever Brian wanted to do. And I love the spirit.
Remember, all four of them, all four of them wrote hit songs. I mean,
Right.
It was all of them. They all brought, hit songs to the table. And actually, I mean, again, Michael probably knows better than me. I don't think there was a lot of collaboration between the writer. I think if you look at the writers of Queen, I think it was like one guy. I don't think there was a lot of songs where they actually,
Right.
Freddie and Brian. But I'm not, again, I'm not the
Right.
the back album cover guy, but
yeah, because Roger Taylor wrote Best Friend, and Freddie wrote his stuff, and Brian had his stuff, and but they made it work, and that was the thing. Like the one thing you knew about Queen,
the rather than like the mashups, which are taking complete ideas, I like working with the threads at that level, like, and building something different with different threads. And
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's great stuff. And what I forgot before was that, and I don't know where I was going with it, but progressive metal, for instance, was something that I didn't want to go and call, because it's not really metal. It's not.
Right.
It wouldn't. People progressive metal. They think of Dream Theater. They think of, I don't know,
Right.
Opus. They think all the millions of CDs I bought after Dream Theater came out, like that, that all sounded the same to me. And it was just like, as you get older, things just get more boring. It's harder to impress. I like to tell the young artists and the young, even just not even artists, just like, you're young, you're what, 12, 13, 14? Listen, now is when you're going to be like, whoa, what's that?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Because once you get to be our age, it's like, yeah, I heard that. Oh, yeah, they ripped it off from, like you were saying before. Well, I'm glad that if they don't know where our influences are, if they listen to the record and they can actually not go, wow, that guy stole that from Toe, or they,
Sounds like
whatever. Sure. To me, I always wanted to have a uniqueness. That's always been my major things in life, was to be recognizable as a composer, as a guitar player, to be, have my own signature. I don't know if I've achieved that or not, but that's always been something that I've strived for.
Yeah. And I didn't mean to imply that at any point that I think you guys ripped off any of those bands. It's just,
Fuck you, man! Fuck
you know,
yeah.
but it has that kind of spirit of it. Like the
Yeah, no,
it's so hard to describe without like making it sound bad, but it,
Exactly.
it has that old school approach and spirit to it that
yeah,
that funness, I guess, is like that. Back in the day, if Meatloaf came out with a new record, you ran to the record store to get it. Or if Pink Floyd put out a record, you ran to the record store to get it because you knew you were going to get a whole experience. It wasn't going to be just music. You had the artwork and the lyrics, and it really has that type of look and vibe and style to it of as being that type of record that you literally go to the record store for and say, hey, do you have this? I have to have this in a physical format, just not an MP3 download, or I can hear it on my phone or something like that. Like so much music today, you can just be like, I'm just going to put it on streaming because I'll probably listen to it half a dozen times and then I'll move on to something else. And this has got that very kind of old school feel and vibe of something that you keep coming back to, because it's familiar, but it's new, it's got that approach, but it's still got its own personality, and it's big and it's bombastic and it's warm and it's at so many levels. Like I said, that there's so much going on. You don't take it all in one listen. Like you have to listen to it, and you'll hear something different each time because there's layers to it. And again, you don't hear that with,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
My biggest compliment to myself is I tell my wife, I go, out of every time I do a couple of records a year for people, this and that. And she goes, oh yeah, what do you think of that? And I go, yeah, I don't know. I haven't listened to it since they recorded it. This is the only record that I actually listen to that I'm on that I like.
Yeah.
So, I actually play it because I actually like it. And I really do like it. It's not just because I play it, because I play on a million things, but I actually really enjoy listening to it. It sounds good. I love the playing. I love the music. It's like I actually like it, what I mean?
And again, not having vocals on a record,
Mike's client list just got cut in half.
Not having vocals is always going to be a challenge for the average listener because most people won't sit through an instrumental record. Even myself, like I have a hard time sometimes with instrumental records. As much as I love guitar playing, it's a challenge for me to focus on something that's purely music. And I didn't have that problem with this. I really didn't. Like it went along and I didn't miss the vocals. I wasn't like, okay, when's the vocal going to come in? When's the melody going to come in? When's the chorus going to come in? When's the bridge going to come in? It was just like, this is cool. Like, this is something I would put the headphones on and lay on the bed at 8:00 at night and just listen to. And, like we used to do when
exactly.
those bands come out. So,
That's
well,
awesome.
it's a great compliment. Because I remember, the old records. I remember The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway and getting a new turntable, upgrading my turntable, and then, wow, there's congas on that track. I never heard them before, and so I love the fact that that someone like yourself and hopefully more people do. You listen to it the second time, the third time, go, wow, now. I mean, that's, it's not that we plan that. It's just that's how we do and how we were raised. And
I am go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I just said that was very cool to hear.
Yeah. And I am a massive Steve Hackett fan. When I list my guitar players, I think your average guitar person, you're going to say Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, blah, blah, blah. But my top three since I was a young kid has always been Gary Moore, Steve Hackett, and David Gilmour. They're the three guitar players that stand above everyone to me because of technique, because of style, the ferociousness of their playing, the adventurousness. Steve's playing is so just all over the place, but it's so melodic at the same time. You know, Gary played like a man possessed on everything. And then it's David Gilmour. You don't even need to explain if, you know. So those are always going to be my favorite three guitar players. Say that again.
Another guitar player because I was a big Steve Hackett fan, and of course Gary Moore, also a big fan of Gary. Dave Gilmour, of course, like you said, you know, how could you not? Peter Banks, if you go back, you know, Peter Banks from, you know, the original guitar player in Yes, and then Flash, and you know, that was my whole instruction on how to texture guitars, was growing up listening to Peter Banks and what he did with the guitars, and Steve Hackett, of course, too, how he fit into all that was going on. And that's the weirdest guitar, you know, the stuff that he would put into, you know, so as a young guitar player, in my first original band was a prog rock band, and you know, it was those guys and Gentle Giant, you know, from a compositional thing, but you know, those guys hit it, you know. And Mark Clark, that, you know, that we mentioned already, played on a couple of tracks. You know, he worked with Gary Moore a lot, and you know, he considered it. So Alan Holdsworth, he worked with. So so he also, you know, Gary Moore, and Gary Moore was actually in Coliseum too. That was a rendition. And then, you know, Mark, I think on the last tour with Clem Clemson and when John Heisman was still alive, they had to redo, or they wanted to redo. They did a record. Now, that was actually JCM. They did a record of their heroes. Now, those are guys that, you know, have played on everything with everybody. And so they did a record, and one of the, you know, things they did was Inquisition, which was a Gary Moore thing about showing Gary Moore playing like basically prog rock fusion. You know, that I never thought about. Gary, never knew of him. You know, I knew of him as basically a very melodic metal player, a fiery player. Then he did the blues stuff, and he was a fiery blues player. But going back to whenever that was, maybe the 70s, and hearing Gary Moore do an Inquisition is like, and they did it, you know, Coliseum did it, or JCM did it a couple of years ago, where with Don Airey, who actually was one of the co-writers on it, I believe. And it was just, I never knew I knew Don Airey as being like a backing guy. You know, I never knew of him as like a guy who could like really rip it up and like, you know. And, so they actually slowed it down 3/4 speed when they did it on tour. But that's a great piece of music. And Gary Moore was phenomenal.
Yeah. I was very fortunate. I got to see Gary Moore. I was 11 years old, fourth row at Castle Donington in 1984. And I make the joke that I still have an eyebrow that has never quite grown in correctly because he melted the eyebrow off my face. Like he just, you know, like Gary was just a monster player. Danny Kerwin is another player who I love so much, Fleetwood Mac. Because, you know, a lot of people don't know that Fleetwood Mac was a blues band before they became what they were with Rumors and whatnot. And, you know, there was the whole. So
Peter Green, I think, right? Peter Green?
Yeah, Peter Green and Danny Kerwin.
Yeah, and Bob Wilson too.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. A lot of people don't know that inclination of the band before Lindsey and those guys kind of came along and did the whole thing. And Danny was just a really kind of weird player, and him and Pete matched so well because they were both kind of weird players in their own sense. And I think the two weirdnesses kind of did, and you know, that's how you ended up with songs like Green Manalishi. They were just trippy, psychedelic songs, but they had that blues bass to it that was a vibe, I guess, for lack of a better term that kids are using now. And you know, it was different. Like even now you listen back to it and you think, damn, that's just so completely different than anything you're hearing now. And but Where do they find this record? Where do they find you guys? Where do they find, anything you've played on? Any kind of merchandise? Obviously, the video for Sick Shit is on YouTube, so you can go watch that.
The other two are on there too. Glasgow Real and Sun are also on there.
Oh, there's multiple videos in.
3 videos for that.
Okay, awesome.
All good ones.
So
Yeah, it's on, we have a YouTube.
You can get on streaming and on anything, Spotify or iTunes or Amazon, anything. And if you want to pick up the physical CD, you can get it on Amazon and Vanity Music.
okay, awesome.
Yeah. It's all. I mean, we're still waiting for it. It's it was released via Sony, the Orchard, so digitally it's everywhere. CDs are well, good luck with that, but it is out CD wise, like Mike said, on Amazon. And it's not reached Japan yet. It's supposed to be Disc Union and Viki are going to have it in Japan as soon as barges roll in there. We don't know, but it was supposed to be, released worldwide. But of course, in this day and age of shipping and all the things going on, I know it's not in Japan yet in a hard copy. But hopefully it's in European stores, or at least European. I don't know actually about European stores, but it should be available at least online in Europe and the UK. And I know it will be getting to stores in Japan, and it should be also online in Japan, but not yet.
So, is there any vinyl, or is it just CD and streaming?
I think it's just CD. And
right now it's just CD and streaming and downloading, and it'll, depending on how the record does, we'll see what Mr. Dave Tedder can do with it.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't mention this is a Dave Tedder thing, another one that he sent over, Vanity Music Group. I think people kind of know which bands are Dave now because they're always like the best interviews. Like his artists, just they like all of the groups and the artists that Dave sent. They're very personality wise, just really are great. Like, so I kind of find that even if it's something I may not love, I'll still do the interviews because the interviews always end up being fun because the artists are fun. So you just kind of be like, okay, maybe it's just not my thing, but not that it's a bad record. Maybe it's just not something I'm into as much. The interviews still end up great, and they're fun, and we have fun doing it. So,
and above average handsome too.
Yeah,
I always tell my wife that. She's like, I don't see it.
Don't hate me because I'm beautiful. With that said, this is Ray. This is Michael. It is Migliori
Amici and Company.
Yeah, Amici and Company. The record is called Best of Friends. Check this thing out. Go to YouTube. Check out the videos. Find these guys. Let them know that you've seen this on YouTube, on the Noize Report. Support the project, please, because in this day and age, there's so much noise that when good, great music like this is available, you gotta support it, man, so that they can make more and drown out the other noise, Think of it as after all of the noise you hear on a daily basis, you have awesome stuff like this to kind of cleanse your palate and whatnot. So guys, thank you for doing this, and again, listening to my insane rambling and inane dumb questions.
For having us. That's what makes it great, doing stuff like this. Thanks so much for your support. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anything you guys need in the future, man, I'll be more than happy to to help. I really do love this record. Like I said, it really is such a great record, and I'm so glad that it was sent.
I want you to look into the camera and say that. Look into the camera. Come on, I know you can do it.
This is a great record. It is Music God approved.
Thanks.
There you go.
Great. That is really great.
All right, this is the Noize Report. We'll be back soon with another awesome interview. I don't know who it'll be, but there's always a victim willing to wander into the musical trap. So with that said, we're out of here.